So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. There's a lot going on in the United Auto Workers contract talks right now, and we're going to talk about it today. In order of timeliness, we're going to talk about the UAW's filing an unfair labor practice charge against GM and Stellantis. That's who they're looking to play hardball with. They allege, the United Auto Workers allege that GM and Stellantis didn't bargain in good faith or in a timely manner. And so far, Stellantis hasn't received the claim from the National Labor Relations Board, but isn't shocked. General Motors called it an insult to the bargaining committees and claimed that they've been hyper focused on negotiating directly and in good faith. It's more of a negotiating tactic than a legal maneuver. An unfair labor practice charge, or a ULP, is a formal complaint filed by an employee, labor union, or their representatives against an employer, alleging violations of labor laws and regulations. It can go both ways. An employer can file it against a labor union. That's pretty rare, frankly. These charges typically relate to the violations of the rights and protections established by labor laws, specifically along the National Labor Relations Act. The current 4-year labor agreements, which cover 146,000 in the Detroit 3 automakers, expires on September 14th. So they really, we're 6 days out, and there's not a lot of time to get this knocked out. Meanwhile, the UAW has sought for a pay raise of 46% over the contract period, and ending the two-tier wage system that came about in 2007, where new hires make a lot less than veteran workers. In addition, they're looking for cost of living allowances and the return of a full pension plan. So the United Auto Workers demands are quite a bit. I mean, they're looking for a substantial increase in pay and some long-term benefits, and that's what is apparently holding up negotiations there in Detroit. The United Auto Workers has made a contract counter proposal on the economic issues. Quite frequently, labor talks are divided up into various issues: economic, personnel, discipline, things of that nature. And so talks are still heating up, and 97% of the members have voted in authorizing the strike. So if this doesn't come through, one or all of the factories could be subject to, or one or all of the companies could be subject to a strike. Sean Fain, the UAW president, has alleged that they're delaying and that they waited until the last 8 days to start talking, which, if true, it's a significant delay on something of this magnitude. Ford counteroffered a 9% wage increase through 2027, which is quite frankly, again, probably a negotiating tactic. A 9% increase over 4 years, especially in a high inflation environment, is, I would imagine, quite low. That's pretty substantially low, and it's definitely counter to the union's 46%. Stellantis is going to give the UAW a counteroffer, but the union is looking for 28% right off the bat, and then 4 or 5% annual wage hikes, as well as all temporary workers at U.S. automakers to be made permanent, which is a very substantial requirement. I don't know what the numbers are. I guess it depends, but that could be fairly substantial to make all temporary workers permanent. Ford apparently wants a no cap on temporary workers, which I don't quite understand. I'm sure that there is a business justification for that, but I imagine that Ford wants to sort of ebb and flow with the economy because, as it currently looks like, car sales are not looking good for Ford, and it's why I've speculated in the past that maybe Ford simply just lets the strikes happen just in order to reduce the output of cars and drive the prices up. Because I think with car sales being down and the cost of interest and cost of capital at this current time, it sort of makes sense to me personally. There are some other players in this which are quite interesting, right? Stellantis is threatening to move south, specifically to Mexico as leverage. Uh, there is already quite a bit of automaking work being done in Mexico, specifically along the border. There are a lot of suppliers that are already down there, die casting shops, engine shops. And so this is where the politics come into play. The NAFTA agreement has continued to hurt, appears to have continued to hurt the automakers, and they've continued to, it's helped them. It's hurt the automotive workers, but they can use it as leverage to go south if these contract negotiations don't work out. I don't think that China is no longer a bargaining chip, but certainly Mexico is, and so Stellantis is making these threats, and frankly, the other threat, not just moving all the way south to Mexico, but more and more car companies are moving to the southeast. You obviously see BMW and I believe Mercedes opening up in Alabama. You see a lot of Japanese car makers in South Carolina. You see Volkswagen in Chattanooga, and these are also really existential threats to the United Auto Workers. And you see these threats coming, in the context of these negotiations. Speaking of that, Trump made a play for UAW support amid the strike threats, and he's focusing his campaign against Biden's push for electric vehicles. We've covered it in several different videos, but electric vehicles require less employees, less parts, and as a result, need less automotive workers. The UAW has continued to support Biden almost, on the highest level, right at the just unanimous level, for various reasons, of course. But Trump is making that push, saying that EV will murder the U.S. auto industry. It probably won't murder the industry, but it might destroy a lot of the labor force that comes with automotive. And finally, Ford gave 8,000 workers represented by UAW a raise, which is a really big change. I'm sure that's to stave off the threat of walking out. It's really hard to walk out if you've got a raise in place. It's only 8,000 workers, which makes up a small part of the unionized workforce, but it represents $4.33 an hour, and which is up to $9,000 per year. So I think obviously this is a play to prevent the striking, the potential of a strike, specifically at the Ford plants, by playing ball with the United Auto Workers. It's a very interesting move. I don't know how frequent this is, but the idea is on the heels 6 days from now we have the strike and or potential strike, and Ford is wanting to it appears Ford is wanting to continue production. So that's it on the updates for the United Auto Workers there in Detroit. Let me know what you think about this update. Let me know what you think about the potential strike in the auto industry as a whole. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.